Hi folks, welcome back. Doing our video on an extraordinary Canadian Grand Prix weekend. It was amazing from day one. Qualifying, probably one of the best we've seen, and the scene was set for a great race, and Canada delivered. And really, it's a track where there was overtaking, so much action. And we decided, how to look at these weekends in future. So we thought of like piloting this one. The headline, as you see it on this video, is Canadian Grand Prix, the good, the bad, and the anonymous. Basically, that will sum up the entire field. Some guys were totally anonymous and probably won't get mentioned. But in that way, we can give everyone a bit of a call. So I'm going to go straight to Jad, who made the list of the good, the bad, and the ugly. I don't know what they are. So let's see if we agree. So Jad, you got the list of the good, the bad, the anonymous. Let's go with the good.
Okay, the good, first of all, goes to Canada. The whole race, the whole event. It was a great weekend. The weather played a factor. Wet practice, dry qualifying, then a wet race. The teams had to know how to set up their cars. So that was interesting. There were so many variables during the race. We didn't know who's going to win. At one point, you felt George Russell. At another point, Lando. Another point, Max Verstappen. So it was a great race overall. That's a good. And then in terms of teams and drivers, you can say Max with the Red Bull pit wall because they delivered an impeccable operation. Max, he had one mistake, but he delivered a clean race. Lando Norris was great as well. And McLaren, they slipped a bit on strategy, but nevertheless, they got on the podium. And Mercedes, although I think they under-delivered what they promised, they still get a good because end of the day, finally Mercedes get their first podium this year. So these are the list of goods for me.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue. I mean, Max was absolutely superb. And of course, Red Bull got the maths absolutely 100%. And then the other half of the garage is Perez. We'll talk about him in the bad. In terms of Mercedes, yeah, I think that there was an opportunity for them to win this one. Really, in retrospect, and then big kudos to them because they've made a huge, huge step with that car. Let's see if it's only Montreal specific. They were on it the whole weekend. They tickled the front row. I mean, George took pole, and I think that's very special. Beating Lewis. Lewis was super fired up this weekend. So yeah, a big good to George because Lewis came at him, but then he just whittled in qualifying, and this is one of the greatest qualifying in the history of Formula One. And of course, McLaren, I'm so proud of them. I mean, it's come right, and Lando could have won that race if Logan Sargeant hadn't crashed, and a few other things. I think like Russell, Norris could have won the race, but in the end, the king won it, and that's Max. In terms of the other good, I'm going to say this. Okay, it was so good to have Zak Broen on the commentary teams, and in the build-up. This guy was, for me personally, it's a revelation. I'm so sick of the Formula One narrative being controlled by teams and by drivers and their managers, and the pundits don't really criticize, and the ones that do get absolutely vilified. And here you have Zak Villeneuve. I mean, this is Zak Villeneuve. Let's not forget. I know people detract from him and they think he's a bit of an idiot, but really Zak is the real deal. He's not an idiot at all. He's a very smart guy. The bottom line, he's a world champion. He's a Grand Prix winner. He's won the Indy 500 and he's an IndyCar champion. I mean, the guy can talk till the cows come home, and I really appreciate him because he's one of the only guys, or one of the very few. Martin Brundle sometimes gives it very like British, very polite. Zak just says, boom, Perez, how did you give him another? What's going on at Red Bull? That was his reaction, my reaction, most of the people's reaction. Come on, 2-year extension for Checo. My God, that's got to be a lot of Mexican pesos coming into that team. So, and then Zak had to go at Daniel. And boom, Daniel put the car in fifth. It's exactly the tonic Daniel needed. Wake up, dude. Put that car where it needs to be. But then Daniel, of course, dropped the ball in the race. Zak was right. So it was just, for me, he's going to get driver of the day, driver of the weekend, driver of the build-up, because finally Formula One has someone that's calling it as he sees it. If this was soccer, trust me, we watch a lot of soccer stuff, and big legends of soccer have their own shows. For every Zak, there's 100 soccer guys, and they're scathing, mate. There's nowhere to hide. And that's why I hope Sky embraces Zak, puts him on the team. They have an excellent team. They have a really excellent team, but they're all singing from the same hymn sheet. We need another guy to come in there with his own songs and sing what he sees. And that'll be a perfect balance. I hope they just didn't roll him out for Canada, because Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, his famous dad, and of course, Canada's greatest world champion. Yeah, I know I ramble. What to do? I like Zak. I like Zak.
Yeah, you do.
Okay, so
just a note on Mercedes before we move on to the bad. George Russell needs to cut down on his mistakes during racing. We always felt that he's suspect to errors, and Toto Wolff has to come over the radio. Good boy, George. Focus, George. No, George is supposedly the team leader after Lewis leaves. And yeah, he's beating Lewis on qualifying on pure pace. Lewis, don't forget, he's burned out. He needs to go to Ferrari. He just can't wait to get to Ferrari. So I'll give Lewis that. But Russell needs to be more composed during races. So let's go to the bad. Wow.
Yes, I love the bad.
Yeah, the bad. Sadly, I have to say my team, Ferrari, wow, what a disaster. What a disaster. 0 points. 0 points, mate. Honestly, that's painful. And you know, we said...
And that's after P1 and a P3.
Exactly.
In Monaco.
Exactly. This is what I wrote in my takeaways. A team would have an off weekend, but it came at the wrong time because they were having the momentum. Charles was chasing Max down in the championship, and now boom, Max has like 2 races of a buffer in terms of points, over 50 points gap. I don't think Charles can be blamed for this race. You know, the car wasn't working for them, and then he got the power unit issue during the race, so there's nothing he could have done. Sainz, I would like to see the Sainz that started the season come back. He hasn't been on his game for a few races now. Okay, he got the podium in Monaco, but in Monaco, we know the Ferrari was super dominant. So, yeah. And that mistake, mate, in the end, he took out...
And you think he's got another appendix?
Yeah, maybe we should cut another appendix or something. No one knows. Yeah,
but I mean, it was the best I've ever seen him that weekend.
Yeah, exactly. And then he takes out Alex Albon. Poor Alex. Alex was doing a beautiful job.
Man, that was so sad.
We should have given him a good. Actually, he deserves.
There you go. That's the good you missed.
Yeah,
there you go. Give him a good now. Give him a good now.
Alex Albon gets a big good. Especially made that pass on Daniel Ricciardo and Esteban Ocon. That was amazing, mate.
It was
you need balls to do that pass, and especially when you're having someone like Ocon defending. You know Ocon these days. He's not really.
Ocon didn't see it coming. He broke his ankles with that move.
Yeah,
Ocon didn't see him coming. He thought he was coming on the outside, so he went wide and boom, he did.
Yeah, that was fantastic. That was fantastic. Good thing for Williams to have him. It's good for Williams to have that guy. But
other side of the coin,
which takes us to the second bad, Logan Sargeant. For God's sake, please take.
Oh man,
stop this guy's misery. Take him out of the car, put him somewhere else, and just get any other driver to drive this car. It's painful to see him doing this every weekend. Painful, you know. James Vall says, yeah, it's in his hands, and he knows it's in his hands, and then the guy just drops it. He's out of his depth. I'm sorry to say that.
Yeah, that's it. You hit the nail on the head. Logan Sargeant is out of his depth. Lovely guy, whatever he's done, he's actually achieved very little in racing.
Yeah.
Honestly, compared to a guy like Oscar Piastri, who came in on the same year as him. And look at the difference. Look at the golf. That's actually the benchmark. Forget Max Verstappen as a benchmark, which is nowhere near it. Let's look at Oscar relative to Lando. He's right there, mate. Whereas this kid is absolutely crashes too often. I'm very worried he's going to hurt himself. And he's too far back to actually hurt others. So, honestly, James Vowles made a big mistake on this one. He's got to put up his hand and actually get this kid out of the car. He's not going to get any better in the next 20 races. Honestly, he's not. He's not going to become a Formula One driver overnight. And I'm not going to beat around the bush. Logan is dangerous for himself. As you said, he's totally out of his depth. Absolutely 110%.
The other bad, of course, stating the obvious here, is Checo. Honestly, I don't think this is what Red Bull expected from him after giving him this 2-year contract. Just, you know,
it was outrageous.
They deserved some appreciation, you know, not this kind of race. Out of Q1 for the second race in a row, and then I think he got tagged up with Gasly
But then didn't he then crash?
And
And
then he
there's a story
crashed,
going around.
and then he crashed, and then yeah, his crash basically threatened Max's lead because there was a safety car in there, but they told him to drive the car with damage. They took the penalty, they took the fine just to save Max. But then Sainz and crashed
It's a bit of
himself.
manipulation going on there. Correct me if I'm wrong. So basically, Red Bull said your car's broken, bring it to the pits just in case. I don't know.
Yeah, mate. I saw some stuff on social media. Will Buxton, he was saying that he compared it to Singapore 2008, and then he deleted it. And I think he's right to delete it. That wasn't smart, because they didn't tell Checo to crash
The car.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he crashed. They told him, if you can get it to the pits, get it to the pits so we don't get a safety car. And I don't think any team, we've seen so many other drivers do it. They drive around with fluttering front wings, and I don't know. I don't think that's a big issue. It's like it's a tactic which they decided, they paid for it, and they're gonna pay for it because he gets a grid penalty next race. So yeah, move on. There's nothing there
You
to
see,
look
the
at.
problem with guys like Will Buxton is they're so used to brown nosing, the drivers and the teams. When they have to criticize, they don't know how to, and they actually do one of these.
Yeah.
Jacques would have handled it totally different. So it was just like weird, that whole like Checo thing. Did it benefit Max? I don't know. We got to look at that. But these guys that aren't used to criticizing, sometimes they go too aggressive because they don't know how to approach these subjects, and they drop clangers. And the fact that he deleted that tweet's quite interesting, which meant that someone gave him a call and said, "Ooh, you can't do that." The thing about this is what I like about Jack. He can call it as it is, and no one tells him you can't do that.
And we're back to the Zak Villeneuve fan club. Come on.
Okay, yeah, okay.
We gave Jack some time. He got airtime.
I want a statue of Jack outside my fucking house. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, that's
on.
it. Well, the rest, I think.
No, there's more. Is there more goods? Let's go. Carry on. Is there more goods?
I don't think there's more goods. The bads, these are the bads. The rest basically are anonymous. Like Oscar Piastri, he was decent in qualifying, but he tends to disappear in the race. He's still, he's pushing Lando hard, especially on pace and on qualifying. But on race day, you feel Lando still has the edge. And during the Canadian Grand Prix, you could see Oscar was there sometimes, and then boom, he was out. He was out of the picture. Aston Martin, both of them scored points. Fernando and Lewis had this nice fight in the back, but no one was focusing on it because everyone was focusing on the fight up front. But the problem with Aston Martin as a whole team, they're starting to slip into anonymity. You know what I mean? They're not improving.
Yeah, pretty much like Alpine.
Exactly. Alpine, they're worse.
Yes.
But yeah, Aston Martin, they had some hope, but now you think they're plateaued. And when you plateau in Formula One, that's moving backwards. That's not staying where you are, because everyone's moving ahead. So Alpine and Aston Martin, yeah, they get to be anonymous. Sauber has, I don't know what to say. They're just making up the numbers, to be honest. I love the fact that Haas put their drivers on the full wets at the start. Magnussen was fantastic.
Yeah, that was brilliant. That was a good.
No, mate. No, mate. The
right
writing was on the wall, because we know these tires. At this first hint of less water on the track, these tires get destroyed.
Yeah, you could
see it.
Hate them.
The drivers hate them.
It was
yeah. And
it was just the showboating.
Exactly. I don't know why. And here, I don't know why F1 keep these tires, because if they never allow the drivers to race when there's so much water because of the spray and the safety, I agree, safety, no problem. But then you don't need those tires, because there will be no condition for these tires to be used. That's my take on it.
Yeah, well, I can't argue with that. So that's it. Canadian Grand Prix. Have we discussed every angle?
Yeah. Well, next race is going to be interesting. Barcelona, it's a classic track.
Yes. That's a very good.
Yeah,
it's
going to be a good comparison, because we can see if Red Bull are really struggling on specific circuits or not. We could see if Mercedes are genuine with their progress. I think McLaren are going to do a good job over there as well. They have an overall good package. Let's see if Ferrari can bounce back. Yeah, lots of stuff. The season is getting better and better. I know we got a hit with this one because Max got a bit of an advantage again in the championship. But I think, yeah, we can still look ahead for a great season.
Well, that's it. So far, it's like two strikes. Strike one, that Red Bull is beatable. Strike two is Mercedes, looks like Ferrari, and looks like McLaren have definitely closed the gap. Max had to work extremely hard. And as you said, a very good is that Barcelona is coming up. And Barcelona is it's always been the tape measure, the benchmark, whatever you want to call it, of Formula One, because they do so much testing there. They know they have so much data on that track. The drivers know that track like the back of their hands. So it's going to be absolutely super close. And I think once you get the qualifying margins, you'll see the pecking order in terms of everything. And in the race, we'll see the pecking order there. I see it very difficult for them to beat Red Bull, but you know, I would have said the same thing in Monaco. I would have said, well, Monaco, no, but I would have said the same thing in Canada, because those straights should have been good for that Honda. But anyway, it's going to be a fantastic Grand Prix. The Canadian Grand Prix set the stage for what the rest of the season could be, and I don't think it's going to be a walkover like it was before. What do you think?
Yeah, totally agree. From what we're seeing right now, I think this is the situation. Like said, you know, Horner said after the race, they're into the region of the diminishing benefits now. They're into the law of diminishing benefits. Okay. There's so much that Red Bull could do for this car. You know, they're going to get incremental gains here and there. But yeah, the gap is closed, and yeah, it's going to be exciting.
Good one. Thanks, guys. Thanks a lot for listening. If you got this far, give us a like. Let us know what you're thinking, and catch you for the next one. Cheers.